Elisa Lam, the mystery at the Cecil Hotel. Previously on True Echoes. In Part 1, we followed Elisa Lam's mysterious disappearance, the disturbing elevator footage, and the shocking discovery of her body inside a rooftop water tank. Now, in Part 2, we uncover the unanswered questions, the autopsy contradictions, the chilling legacy of the Cecil Hotel, and the theories that refuse to fade away. Floating face up in the dark water was the body of a young woman. She was naked, her clothes drifting beside her like shadows, her long hair fanned out across the surface. It was Elisa Lam. Lopez immediately recoiled in shock and rushed to alert his supervisors. Within minutes, the rooftop was crawling with police officers, firefighters, and investigators. Helicopters circled above as news crews rushed to the scene. The headlines came quickly. Missing Canadian tourist found in hotel water tank. Body discovered in rooftop cistern at infamous Cecil Hotel. For detectives, the discovery created more questions than answers. The rooftop was a restricted area. Access doors were locked and connected to alarms. To reach the tanks, Elisa would have needed to pass these barriers, climb a ladder onto the platform, and then lift a heavy lid that most people could not open alone. The tanks themselves were not designed for entry. The openings were small, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Once inside, the slick metal walls and water levels made climbing back out nearly impossible. How, then, had Elisa managed to get inside? And if she hadn't, who put her there? Meanwhile, horror spread among the hotel's guests. For nearly 3 weeks, they had been using that very water for showering, washing their hands, brushing their teeth, and even drinking. One guest told reporters, "The water had a funny taste, but I thought it was just the old pipes. Knowing what was in it all that time, I feel sick." Some guests became physically ill. Others filed lawsuits against the hotel for negligence and emotional trauma. The Cecil Hotel, already infamous for its dark past, was now forever linked to one of the most disturbing discoveries in modern true crime history. And what should have been closure only deepened the mystery. After Elisa's body was recovered, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office began their investigation. For her family in Vancouver, this was the moment they had dreaded but also hoped would bring clarity. But the answers did not come quickly. The autopsy was performed in February 2013, but the full report was not released until June, almost 5 months later. This delay alone fueled suspicion among the public. Why did it take so long? What were they hiding? The official findings. When the report was finally published, the official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning with bipolar disorder as a significant contributing condition. There were no signs of physical trauma, no bruises, no cuts, no broken bones. There was no evidence of sexual assault. Her lungs contained fluid consistent with drowning. On paper, it looked straightforward, but the toxicology report told a more complicated story. The toxicology report. Elisa had been prescribed several medications for bipolar disorder and depression, including Wellbutrin, bupropion, an antidepressant, Lamictal, lamotrigine, a mood stabilizer, Seroquel, quetiapine, an antipsychotic often used for bipolar disorder, Effexor, venlafaxine, another antidepressant. The tests showed that some of these drugs were present in her blood, but not at therapeutic levels. In fact, the results suggested she had not been taking all of her medications consistently. For mental health experts, this was critical. Without the right balance of medication, Elisa could have experienced hallucinations, paranoia, or manic behavior, possibly explaining her bizarre actions in the elevator video. But skeptics asked, if this was simply a manic episode, how did she bypass the locked doors and alarms to reach the roof? And how did she manage to climb into a tank so difficult to access? The missing pieces. Several details made the public uneasy. Clothing. Elisa was found naked with her clothes floating beside her. Why? Did she remove them herself in panic, or were they taken off after death? Autopsy delay. Why did it take 5 months to release the findings? Toxicology. Questions. Some experts argued the levels of her medications were inconclusive, possibly degraded after weeks in water. Security footage. Portions of the elevator video appeared edited with missing timestamps. Had something been cut out? Expert opinions. Dr. Judy Ho, a clinical psychologist, told news outlets that inconsistent medication could absolutely lead to psychosis. If she stopped taking even one of these drugs, the effects could have been profound, she explained. Others, including retired homicide detectives, weren't convinced. I've seen suicides, I've seen accidents, but the circumstances here don't line up. She couldn't have gotten in there alone. Somebody helped her or put her there. Public reaction. For Elisa's family, the report was devastating. They had hoped for closure. Instead, they were left with more questions. In interviews, her parents quietly expressed doubt, refusing to believe their daughter's death was as simple as an accident. The public felt the same. News articles summarized the report, but online forums lit up with criticism. On Reddit, one user wrote, "This is not enough. They're brushing this under the rug." On YouTube, amateur investigators dissected the toxicology line by line, pointing out inconsistencies, debating whether the evidence supported foul play. The autopsy, meant to close the case, had only widened the mystery. Theories and internet obsession. When the elevator video was released, Elisa Lam's case exploded far beyond Los Angeles. It became one of the first true crime mysteries to go viral online, sparking debates that continue to this day. People around the world, from Canada to Korea, from Reddit threads to YouTube channels, became armchair detectives. Everyone had a theory. 1. Mental health crisis. The official conclusion that Elisa suffered a psychotic break due to inconsistent medication seemed plausible to many. Psychologists explained that missing doses of drugs like Seroquel or Lamictal could trigger hallucinations, paranoia, and disorganized thinking. In the elevator video, Elisa's gestures, stretching her fingers, peeking out nervously, were interpreted as symptoms of a psychotic episode. Supporters of this theory pointed to her history of depression and bipolar disorder, documented in her blog. One Reddit user wrote, "If you've seen someone in full mania, this looks exactly like it. She wasn't running from anyone, she was running from her own mind." But even those who accepted this theory admitted it didn't explain everything. How did she reach the locked rooftop? How did she lift the heavy water tank lid? Why was she naked? 2. Foul play. For many, Elisa's death couldn't be explained by mental health alone. The Cecil was a dangerous place. Drugs, assaults, overdoses. It wasn't unthinkable that she had been attacked. Some believed she was murdered and her body placed in the tank. They pointed to the missing security footage. Several minutes of the elevator video appear cut or tampered with. Why? Others highlighted the locked doors and alarm system leading to the roof. Hotel staff insisted no alarms were triggered. Did someone with a key, an employee or resident, help her to the roof? The fact that Elisa was found naked only added to suspicion. Though the coroner found no evidence of sexual assault, many believed the possibility hadn't been fully ruled out. A retired LAPD detective interviewed years later said bluntly, "I don't buy the accident story, not for a second. Someone helped her up there or wanted her body to disappear." 3. Paranormal explanations. The Cecil Hotel's sinister history made paranormal theories almost inevitable. Some viewers claimed Elisa's strange hand movements in the elevator looked like she was fighting off an unseen force. Others noted that the hotel had long been associated with suicides and violence, giving it a reputation as cursed. YouTube comments filled with speculation. "You can see a shadow move in the hallway. There's someone or something there. This place is haunted. The hotel itself killed her." These theories lacked evidence, but they captured the imagination of millions. 4. The elevator game. One of the strangest theories came from an urban legend originating in South Korea, the so-called elevator game. According to the ritual, pressing elevator buttons in a specific sequence could transport a person to another dimension. Videos comparing Elisa's button pressing to the rules of the game went viral. In this interpretation, Elisa wasn't hiding from someone. She was attempting the ritual, and something went horribly wrong. Though clearly rooted in folklore, the theory spread quickly online, blending internet creepypasta with real tragedy. 5. The tuberculosis conspiracy. At the time of Elisa's disappearance, Los Angeles was experiencing a tuberculosis outbreak, centered in Skid Row, right outside the Cecil. The test used to detect the disease was called the LAMELISA test. The coincidence was so bizarre that conspiracy theorists ran wild. Some speculated Elisa was a test subject. Others believed her death was staged to distract from or cover up the outbreak. No evidence ever supported this, but online, the coincidence was enough to fuel endless speculation. 6. The internet obsession. What made Elisa's case unique wasn't just the mystery, it was how the internet turned it into a phenomenon. Reddit threads stretched for thousands of comments. YouTube channels racked up millions of views analyzing the elevator footage. Blogs published timelines, theories, diagrams. Some treated it as entertainment, others genuinely wanted justice, but the lines blurred. For Elisa's family, watching their daughter's final moments become viral content was painful. Her mother later said, "She was our daughter, not a mystery for people to play with." Still, the internet kept the case alive. Without it, Elisa's story might have faded. Instead, it became one of the most talked about mysteries of the decade. The hotel after Elisa. Management speaks out. In the years following Elisa's death, attention turned not only to the case itself, but also to the building where it happened, the Cecil Hotel. Former hotel manager Amy Price, who oversaw the property during Elisa's stay, later gave interviews about what it was like to run the Cecil. Her words painted a picture of a building almost impossible to manage. With more than 600 rooms, many occupied by long-term residents, the hotel operated on a limited budget. Security was stretched thin, and sitting on the edge of Skid Row, the Cecil faced daily challenges: overdoses, violent disputes, thefts, even deaths. Price admitted that tragedies at the Cecil were, sadly, not unusual. During her decade as manager, she said she had handled hundreds of calls involving emergencies, everything from medical incidents to police investigations. Elisa's disappearance was heartbreaking, but in the chaos of the Cecil, it did not initially stand out as extraordinary. In Netflix's crime scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, Price defended her staff, insisting they did all they could under difficult circumstances. But critics argued that the hotel's lack of proper security contributed to Elisa's fate. Lawsuits from guests who had stayed during the incident only deepened the controversy. For many, Elisa's case cemented the Cecil's reputation as more than just a troubled hotel. It was now a symbol of urban decay, tragedy, and unanswered questions. The Cecil today. In 2017, the Cecil Hotel closed its doors for renovations. Developers announced plans to transform the property into a mix of affordable housing and modern apartments. The project faced delays, and the building's future remained uncertain for years. Today, parts of the Cecil operate as low-income housing, providing shelter for residents of downtown Los Angeles. But its reputation lingers. Ghost tours and urban explorers still circle the building, fascinated by its dark history. Documentaries, podcasts, and online videos keep the memory of Elisa Lam alive, making the Cecil one of the most infamous hotels in the world. To some, it's a place of tragedy and mystery. To others, it's a stark reminder of how poverty, mental illness, and systemic neglect intersect in a single building. But whether as a functioning residence or a haunted landmark, the Cecil Hotel will forever be tied to Elisa Lam's name. Elisa Lam's story remains one of the most haunting mysteries of the last decade. The official explanation tells us she accidentally drowned while suffering a mental health crisis. But the questions linger. How did she bypass locked doors and alarms to reach the roof? Why were her clothes removed? Why does the elevator footage still feel so unsettling, even after countless rewatches? For investigators, the case is closed. For skeptics, it is not. For her parents in Vancouver, this is not a puzzle or a theory. It is the unbearable loss of a daughter who had dreams, humor, and courage, but whose life ended far too soon. The Cecil Hotel has tried to move on, to rebrand and rebuild. But for the world, it will always be tied to Elisa Lam. A place where tragedy and mystery collided, creating a story that refuses to fade. And in true echoes, we are reminded that silence, questions, and grief never truly disappear. They echo. What do you think really happened to Elisa Lam in those final hours? Every secret waits to be revealed. Every silence that carries an echo, every story is waiting to be told. This was her secret. What about yours? What do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice matters. Subscribe and step into the echoes of truth.